Love, they say, is the bond that ties two hearts together, building a home filled with joy, laughter, and dreams. In this story, we delve into the life of a devoted couple who had it all: a perfect marriage, a growing family, and endless moments of happiness. But life, unpredictable as ever, takes a sudden and heartbreaking turn when tragedy strikes. What follows is a tale of resilience, the strength of family, and the unexpected kindness of strangers that warms the heart and restores faith in humanity. If you enjoy stories that inspire and move the soul, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Your support is the driving force that helps me create and share more heartfelt stories like this. So, sit back and let me take you on this emotional journey. My mother and father shared a bond that seemed unbreakable, a love story so genuine and profound that it could have been the envy of anyone who knew them. They were a stunning couple, not just in appearance, but in the way they radiated warmth and joy when they were together. Shortly after their marriage, I came into their lives, their cherished only child. My father's devotion to my mother and me was unwavering. His eyes lit up with pride whenever he spoke of his family. However, life has a way of delivering unexpected challenges, and my parents' dream of having a big family was cut short due to an unfortunate complication that arose after my birth. When I was just 2 years old, my father left home one morning and never returned. That day marked the darkest chapter of our lives. He was involved in a tragic accident that claimed his life. At such a tender age, I couldn't grasp the gravity of what had happened, but I knew that my mother's heart had been shattered into countless pieces. Despite her overwhelming grief, she remained steadfast. She threw herself into the role of both mother and father, pouring all her love and energy into raising me. She worked tirelessly, ensuring we had everything we needed, from a warm home to the love and guidance that would shape my life. As I grew older, my mother became my rock, my teacher, and my greatest cheerleader. She was there every morning to prepare breakfast, filling our small kitchen with the comforting aroma of her cooking. She helped me with my homework after school, her patience unwavering even when I struggled. Through the years, she shared stories about my father, his kindness, his dreams, and his endless love for us. In doing so, she kept his memory alive, making him a presence in my life even though he was no longer with us. Her strength and love made me feel truly blessed, and I cherished every moment we spent together. One evening, as the golden hues of the setting sun bathed our living room, my mother and I sat together after dinner. She looked at me with a tender yet hesitant smile, and for the first time in years, I noticed a hint of nervousness in her expression. It was uncharacteristic of her, as she had always been a beacon of calm and confidence. "Honey," she began softly, her voice tinged with a mix of resolve and vulnerability, "I need to talk to you about something important." I set down my glass of milk, intrigued and slightly apprehensive. "What is it, Mom?" She reached out to hold my hand, her touch warm and reassuring. "For so many years, it's been just the two of us. You are my world, and I will always love you more than words can say. But recently, I've been thinking about something. I feel it might be time for me to open my heart again, to find someone to share my life with." Her words hung in the air, and I felt a rush of emotions. For so long, it had been just us, a small but complete family. The thought of someone new entering our lives felt both unfamiliar and unsettling. "Does that mean you won't love me as much anymore?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. My mother's eyes filled with gentle reassurance as she cupped my cheek. "Oh, sweetheart, never. You will always be my precious daughter, the center of my world. No one can ever take your place in my heart. But I've realized that love is something that grows when shared. I want us to have a family that feels complete in a new way, with someone who loves us both." Her words settled into my heart, and after a moment of reflection, I nodded. "Okay, Mom, if it makes you happy, I'm okay with it." Relief and joy swept across her face, and she pulled me into a tight embrace. From that day forward, we began to talk openly about what it might be like to welcome someone new into our lives. The conversations made me curious and even a little excited about the possibilities. Soon, my mother started meeting new people. First, It was intriguing to see her explore this new chapter, but I quickly noticed a pattern. Many of the men who showed interest seemed kind and charming at first, but their enthusiasm often waned when they learned about her past, about my father and about me. Some stopped calling altogether, and their sudden disappearance left me feeling disheartened. Why did her being a mother or a widow matter so much? Despite these disappointments, my mother remained graceful and hopeful. She would often tell me, "True love is patient and understanding. The right person will see us for who we are and embrace us fully." Her strength and optimism inspired me, and I began to understand the depth of her resilience. Then, one day, my mother met a man named Mr. Tund. He was unlike anyone she had met before. From the beginning, he exuded a quiet confidence and genuine kindness that immediately put us at ease. He didn't shy away from my mother's past or the fact that she had a daughter. Instead, he embraced it wholeheartedly. He made an effort to get to know me, asking about my interests and listening intently to my stories. He brought small, thoughtful gifts. A book he thought I might enjoy or a snack he'd heard was my favorite. These gestures were small but meaningful, and they spoke volumes about his character. Over time, I watched as my mother's smile grew brighter and her laughter more frequent. Mr. Tund had a way of bringing out a light in her that I hadn't seen in years. Slowly but surely, he became a cherished presence in our lives. For the first time, I felt the possibility of our small family expanding in a way that felt right and natural. Looking back, I realize how much my mother taught me about strength, love, and the power of hope. She showed me that it's okay to let the past shape us but not define us, and that opening our hearts can lead to unexpected and beautiful new beginnings. Mr. Tund didn't just make my mother happy, he made our family whole again, and for that, I will always be grateful. One ordinary afternoon, as we all gathered in the cozy comfort of our living room, Mr. Tund broke the silence with a question that instantly lit up my imagination. "Would you two like to come with me to the zoo this weekend? I know a girl like you must love animals," he said, his tone warm and inviting. The moment those words reached my ears, I felt a surge of excitement course through me. I had never been to the zoo before, though the mere thought of it always filled me with wonder. Animals fascinated me, each one unique and full of life, and the opportunity to see them up close was something I couldn't pass up. That entire week, I eagerly counted down the days until Saturday. Finally, the day arrived. The three of us spent what felt like a magical day at the zoo. It was even better than I imagined. We marveled at the majesty of lions as they lounged under the sun, watched elephants splash water playfully over each other, and giggled as friendly giraffes bent down to nibble food from our hands. The atmosphere was alive with joy, laughter, and the sounds of nature. My mother, who often seemed preoccupied with the weight of her responsibilities, looked lighter, freer. She laughed openly, her eyes sparkling in a way I hadn't seen in a long time. I could tell she was genuinely happy, and that happiness was contagious. Mr. Tund had a way of making us feel special, and I began to think he might just be someone who could bring lasting joy to our lives. As we left the zoo that evening, I took my mother's hand, my heart full of gratitude and hope. "Mom," I whispered, "I think Mr. Tund is really nice." She looked down at me, her smile tender and knowing, and squeezed my hand gently. From that day on, Mr. Tund became a frequent visitor to our home. His presence was never overbearing but always reassuring. He brought us delicious dinners, helped me tackle tricky homework problems, and even taught me how to ride a bike, something I had always wanted to learn but never had the chance. Slowly, I realized he wasn't just becoming close to my mother, he was becoming a part of my life too. One evening, as the golden hues of sunset painted the sky, my mother called me to her side. Her expression was calm but carried a trace of uncertainty. "Sweetheart," she began, her voice soft, "Mr. Tund has asked me if I would like to be with him and build a family together. I wanted to know how you feel about it. Your opinion means everything to me." I paused, taking a moment to reflect on everything he had done for us, his kindness, his patience, and the love he had shown. "Mom," I said with a smile, "I think he would make a wonderful father." Her eyes shone with relief and happiness, and she pulled me into a warm embrace. Not long after, a special day unfolded in our lives. Mr. Tund planned a surprise proposal that was nothing short of magical. He took us to a picturesque park, vibrant with blooming flowers and the soothing songs of birds. Under the soft glow of the setting sun, he knelt on one knee, holding my mother's hand with unwavering sincerity. "Will you marry me and be my partner for life?" he asked, his voice steady and filled with love. My mother's face lit up with a radiant smile, tears of joy glistening in her eyes as she whispered, "Yes." They embraced, and I clapped with uncontainable excitement, knowing this was the start of a new chapter for our family. Few weeks later, we celebrated their love with a wedding. Though it was a small ceremony, every detail was infused with warmth and happiness. My mother looked stunning in her white dress, like a princess from a fairy tale, while Mr. Tund stood tall and proud in his elegant suit. I had my special role too, dressed in a pretty gown and scattering flower petals along the aisle. Friends and family gathered to share in our joy, filling the day with laughter, music, and delicious food. My mother's smile was brighter than ever, and seeing her so happy filled my heart with contentment. After the wedding, we moved into a cozy new home with Mr. Tund. It wasn't just a house, it was a place where love, laughter, and understanding thrived. He embraced his role as my father wholeheartedly, helping me with school projects, encouraging me to pursue my dreams, and spending time with me in ways that made me feel valued and loved. One quiet evening, as we sat together in the living room, he turned to me with a gentle smile. "You know," he said, "you're not just my wife's daughter. You're my daughter too now. I'll always be here for you, no matter what." His words melted away the fears and doubts I hadn't realized I was holding on to. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I truly had a family, one built on love, respect, and unwavering support. As the years went by, life was not without its challenges, but with Mr. Tund by our side, I always felt a sense of stability and hope. He wasn't just a stepfather. He became a real father to me in every sense of the word. Together, we created memories that would stay with me forever, shaping not just my childhood but also the person I would grow up to be. Mr. Tund had always been a quiet presence in my life, someone who seemed to hover just out of reach but always close enough to notice everything. He watched where I went, who I spoke to, and even checked up on my schoolwork constantly. First, I thought it was just his way of being responsible, but soon, it began to feel suffocating. I started noticing that I had little space of my own, no room to breathe without his shadow looming over me. One evening, after my mom came home from another exhausting day at work, I decided to tell her how I felt. Choosing my words carefully, I said, "Mom, I think Mr. Tund is watching me too much." My voice was steady, but my heart pounded as I waited for her response. My mother looked at me, her face lined with fatigue. She sighed and said, "Sweetheart, he's just trying to make sure you're safe. He cares about you. And honestly, with how busy I am at work, I'm grateful he's here." Her tone was dismissive, and I could see she wasn't ready to have a deeper conversation. Not wanting to burden her further, I nodded quietly and hoped that things would improve on their own. But they didn't. Over the next few weeks, Mr. Tund's watchful eye became more intrusive. He started setting rigid rules: when I could use my phone, who I could talk to, and how long I could spend outside playing with friends. It felt like my world was shrinking, and the freedom I once took for granted was slipping away. Finally, when my mom had a rare free weekend, I gathered the courage to approach her again. This time, I was more direct. "Mom, I know you're busy, but I feel like I don't have any space anymore. I need you to understand how things feel for me," I said, my voice trembling with emotion. To my relief, she listened more intently. Her expression softened as she reached out to hold my hand. "I'm sorry, honey. I didn't realize it was affecting you this much. I'll talk to Mr. Tund and make sure things get better for you," she promised. For the first time in weeks, I felt a glimmer of hope. However, things took an unexpected turn. One afternoon, when my mom wasn't around, Mr. Tunai called me over. His voice was warm and inviting, and he asked me to sit with him. First, our conversations were lighthearted. He asked about my favorite games, shared stories from his own life, and complimented me in ways that made me feel special. I didn't think much of it at first. I assumed he was just being friendly, but over time, his behavior shifted. He began laughing a little too hard at my jokes, lingering a little too long when he looked at me. Then, one day, something happened that left me stunned. As we sat in the garden surrounded by blooming flowers, he leaned closer and gave me a gentle kiss. I was confused and unsure of what to think. As a young girl, I didn't fully understand the weight of what had just happened. Part of me felt shy, while another part felt a strange sense of excitement. After that, he started calling me over more frequently. Each time we were alone, he would find ways to get closer, and it became something we did almost every day. Our meetings began to feel like a secret world, separate from the reality around us. He would ask me to help with his projects, and we'd laugh and joke as we worked. His compliments made me feel seen, and his kisses became a regular part of our interactions. They were brief but left me feeling a mix of emotions I couldn't untangle. I found myself daydreaming about those moments during school, smiling absent-mindedly as I remembered how warm and safe I felt in his presence. Yet, beneath the surface, I felt a growing unease. I thought about the things my mom had told me about love and respect, and I wondered if this was part of it. My thoughts became a tangled mess, and I didn't know who to talk to or how to make sense of what was happening. One sunny afternoon, while we were sitting on the couch watching a movie, I decided it was time to address my feelings. The film played on, but I could hardly focus. My heart raced as I turned to him and asked softly, "Mr. Tunai, can we talk about what's happening between us?" My voice was steady, but inside, I was a whirlwind of emotions, confusion, hope, and a desperate need for clarity. His reaction would determine everything. Would he dismiss my feelings, or would he provide the answers I was seeking? As the question hung in the air, I realized that this conversation was a pivotal moment, one that would shape how I understood the confusing relationship that had formed between us. For the first time, I felt like I was taking control of my story, even as I stood on the precipice of uncertainty. He paused the movie, his fingers lingering over the remote as he turned to face me, his expression thoughtful and calm. His eyes held a warmth that felt both reassuring and expectant, as if he already knew the weight of what I was about to say. "Of course," he replied gently, his voice steady and encouraging. "What's on your mind?" I hesitated, feeling the rush of emotions swirling in my chest. Taking a deep breath, I met his gaze. "I really like spending time with you," I began, my voice trembling slightly. "And I enjoy our kisses, but I don't want to keep it a secret forever. I need to understand what this means for us. Where are we going with this?" For a moment, he said nothing, his thoughtful silence stretching between us. Then, he smiled softly, brushing a hand through his hair in that familiar way he always did when searching for the right words. "I like spending time with you too," he admitted, his voice tinged with sincerity. "You're special to me. Those kisses? They mean more than I can put into words. But for now, it's important to keep this just between us. It's our little secret, a space that's ours alone." I nodded slowly, his words bringing a mix of emotions that I struggled to sort through. On one hand, I was touched by the way he described our bond, a tender, private connection that felt uniquely ours. Yet, a seed of doubt remained. Was it right to keep something so meaningful hidden from the world? Did it diminish the value of what we shared? The questions lingered, even as I smiled back at him, choosing for the moment to trust his intentions. As the days turned into weeks, our secret became a thread weaving us closer together. We spent countless afternoons exploring quiet parks, challenging each other in playful games, and laughing until our sides ached over silly, inconsequential things. Every time he leaned in for a kiss, felt as if the world paused, leaving only the spark of our connection. But as much as I cherished those moments, the burden of secrecy began to grow heavier with time. I found myself lying awake at night, my thoughts circling the same question. Why did something so pure and joyful have to be hidden? It was then that I realized I couldn't keep these feelings bottled up any longer. I needed to talk to someone I trusted, someone who could help me navigate the confusion in my heart. And so, I decided to confide in my mother. That evening, as we sat together in the living room, the familiar hum of the television playing softly in the background, I gathered my courage. "Mom," I began, my voice wavering but determined, "there's something I need to tell you about Mr. Tunai." Her eyes met mine, her expression a blend of curiosity and concern. She turned the volume down, giving me her full attention. I took another deep breath, the words spilling out faster than I had planned. I told her about the time I'd been spending with him, about the way he made me feel special, and, finally, about our kisses. The room fell silent for a moment, and I watched as surprise flickered across her face, quickly replaced by a look of quiet contemplation. "Oh, sweetheart," she said finally, her voice gentle but firm. "I didn't expect this. Thank you for telling me. I think I need to have a conversation with him." Her words filled me with a mix of relief and apprehension. I had taken the first step, unburdening my heart. But now the thought of her confronting Mr. Tunai filled me with dread. Would he feel betrayed? Would he be angry with me? The questions gnawed at me, but I knew deep down that honesty had been the right choice. The next day, I watched anxiously from a distance as my mother and Mr. Tunai sat down to talk. Their conversation was quiet but intense, their expressions shifting between seriousness and regret. When they finally finished, I saw a profound change in Mr. Tunai's demeanor. His usual confidence was replaced by an air of guilt and reflection, as if he had come to terms with a mistake he hadn't fully realized before. From that day on, our dynamic shifted. Mr. Tunai became more reserved, careful to maintain a respectful distance. He no longer reached for my hand or leaned in as he once did, and while a part of me missed the closeness, I also felt a sense of relief. It was as though he understood the need to tread carefully, to allow space for clarity and self-reflection. As for me, I began to focus on rebuilding my own sense of identity and priorities. I threw myself into activities that brought me joy, sketching intricate designs in my notebook, diving into new books, and spending more time with my friends. Though I missed the spark of our secret moments, I found comfort in knowing I had stood up for myself and set boundaries that felt right for me. Over time, my perspective on our relationship evolved. I began to see the importance of trust, openness, and respect in any meaningful connection. While my bond with Mr. Tunai had been special, I realized it was also flawed in its secrecy and imbalance. By opening up to my mom, I had reclaimed a sense of agency and strength that I hadn't realized I needed. As the weeks turned into months, my interactions with Mr. Tunai took on a different tone. We spoke more as friends, exchanging stories and jokes without the weight of unspoken feelings or hidden moments. The simplicity of our conversations felt refreshing, a reminder that connections can transform without losing their core value. Looking back, I understood that the journey had been a crucial part of my growth, taught me to listen to my instincts, to value my own comfort and well-being, and to trust the people who cared for me. Most importantly, it showed me that love and friendship thrive in the light, not in the shadows of secrecy. With each passing day, I felt more confident in my ability to navigate relationships and to stand firm in my convictions. Life, I realized, was a series of lessons, some painful, some beautiful, but all necessary for finding my path and becoming the person I was meant to be.